Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Meet a Yogi series. Today's Meet a Yogi is with Jessica Dugas, and she is the founder of the Moms Online Mastermind, which is a Facebook group for mothers to help nurture them. And she just started her new Diamond Club, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on today. However, we're just here to talk and get to know one another today. Jessica and I know each other through another Facebook group that we participate in, and we've just gotten to be friends together. She's helping me to develop my training by being like a beta tester for me, and I really appreciate that. It's nice to have somebody explain what they're looking for and giving you some, like honest feedback. So Jessica, welcome to Sadhana.
Thank you. I'm so excited to sit down and get to chat with you today. Sometimes our chats are rushed. You're running on your end and I'm running on my end, and we're like, okay, let's just chat for a quick minute, and then we have to go.
Yes, and then also sometimes I've come in and done events in your group, and sometimes with that, I know a lot of times you're very thoughtful about people's time, and we usually schedule sort of 15, 20 minutes to talk presentation so that it's something that's in the right size for a busy mom to consume. So
yeah, I think that's important because I think the biggest thing that I hear from moms is I don't have enough time for whatever it is that I'm suggesting. And so if I break things down into little chunks, then the time thing is not an excuse anymore, because it doesn't take a lot of time. Yeah. So I think that's important.
We wanted to talk today. I wanted to learn a little more about your background, because I have become such a fan of what you're doing with the Moms Online Mastermind, but I want to know which is just a really, really nurturing space. I want to know, like, what led you to create that, why you felt like you were why you felt it was needed, and then why you were the person to create it. Like, what's been your personal journey?
Sure. So I'm a mom of 6. I kind of backtracking a little bit. I had my son. I got married when I was really young. I was 19, and had my son. I found out I was pregnant, I think, a month after we got married, and so I was really, really young. I was on the other side of the country. My ex-husband was military, and so I was away from everything that I knew, everybody that I knew. Lived in Washington State, coming from Connecticut, so it was a whole other.
You grew up in Connecticut. You moved to Washington State with your now ex-husband?
And I actually was born in Charleston, South Carolina, but my parents divorced when I was 4 months old and moved immediately to Connecticut. So I have no real connection to Charleston, except that my dad's there. So I never spent a lot of time there. Anything else, I spent 99.9% of my time growing up in Connecticut.
Right.
And so I got married and moved to Washington State, got pregnant. It's a really bad relationship, and I stayed in it for, here goes one of mine. I stayed in it for 8 years, and through 2 more children. And
it was. How old are those children now?
My oldest 3 children, my oldest just turned 16 a couple days ago, and then my other son, Sky, is going to be 12 this year, and Nina is going to be 10 in a few days.
Oh wow! Congratulations.
So yes, they're growing quickly. I can't believe how I say that all the time. Time just seems to go by so fast. But anyway, I was in Washington, and then we moved. My ex got out of the military, and we moved to Mississippi, which was very interesting. A whole other planet from, it's like how you and I talk about the differences between New York or New England and Alabama.
Yes.
Mississippi was.
My sister lived in Meridian, Mississippi for many years. And so, yeah, Mississippi, like even growing up in Alabama, I'm going to say, we used to have a saying in Alabama, I'm sure they still have it, thank God for Mississippi. And, it's a little bit of a different world there.
It is. It's very, very different.
Too, right?
I'm sorry?
You were in a very rural area.
Yes, we were in Greene County, Mississippi. Like, it was probably about 45 minutes to the closest store.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was really, and we were there during Katrina. So it was, that whole thing is a whole nother story its own, but we were like without power for 2 weeks and eating, it was just a crazy, crazy experience being there.
Yeah, my sister, they lost power in Meridian and had quite a bit of damage, and we all ended up being together during Katrina, but she had to leave there because they were totally, and Meridian's in the center of the state. Mm-hmm. So that was, it was amazing that they were out of power for something like a week in the center of the state. They were so far away from the shore. You guys were closer to the shore.
It was interesting because during that time, like, you did see a lot of people who are in that area, and I find the same thing about here too. People who are there have been there their whole lives. They know everybody on their street. They've been with them, like, kind of growing up. And so it was interesting to see during that time how everybody kind of came together to help each other. I mean, there was no help. We were so rural. There was no help where we were. And so everybody kind of had to dig each other out. It was the neighbors that were cutting down trees and clearing the roads and, providing food, whatever was defrosting in their freezers, everybody kind of shared. And so it was an interesting, the whole experience was really interesting. And I was almost 9 months pregnant when it happened. So I was like miserable for 2 weeks.
Wow. Oh my
God. That was interesting. But we moved from there to Florida, and Florida is kind of where, the bottom fell out of everything. I got to the point in my life where I didn't want to deal with the things that I had been dealing with my ex for the last 8 years, and ended up in a domestic violence shelter with my 3 kids, and the same week I lost my job. So the bottom literally, when I say the bottom fell out, like it literally fell out.
It sounded like, honestly, when people leave their marriages, that's really sort of on the way up, that when they're in a situation that isn't serving them. And so, I know it was, in a way, it sounds like the bottom was falling out, but also felt like it must have been like when you were willing for everything to change too.
Yeah, and I think it was the first time in 8 years that I had thought about myself. I really, over 8 years, completely lost who I was. Anything that I ever dreamed of or wanted didn't matter anymore. I didn't take care of myself at all. Didn't take care of my house at all. Any bit of energy I had went into taking care of the kids, and that was it. I didn't.
Your kids were young. Yeah. But now you're in Auburn, Alabama now.
Yeah.
You have now 3 additional children. So how did that?
I actually met my husband now not long after kind of the bottom fell out, and I think that's why I love him so much because he loved me and he accepted me even when I was a hot mess that I was then at that time. And we just connected immediately, and we've had 3 children since then. But even then, like I was carrying so much hurt and so much of still not really knowing myself at all, into the relationship now with my husband. And so it was a rough time for a long time. And then being here, I ended up here in Auburn because this is where he was. I had no connection or ties here, other than my new husband. And he kind of has, just sat back and watched while I've been trying to find myself again, that I lost for a long time. And I guess the big incident that happened for me was in 2010. My brother, who was 24, he had melanoma, and he was put in the ICU, and I think a couple days later, they had called, my mom had called and said that my grandfather, that had a huge hand in raising me, that he was going to pass away that day. And so we started driving up from Auburn to Connecticut because I knew that we were going to need to go to a funeral. And so he passed away, sure enough, while we were driving up there. And we got up there to go to the funeral, and my brother actually passed away 2 hours after my grandfather's funeral. So it was probably, I don't know, it was just a moment where I really kind of looked at my own mortality and my faith, and it was like right here. And I was like, oh, like I have not really been living. I've just kind of been floating along and saying I'm okay. And it was probably one of the hardest weeks I've ever experienced in my whole life. And then my grandmother passed away a couple years later. So there was a period of about 5 years where everybody was dying around me. And it was just, it was in my face of, you don't have forever. And so 2010, I started to kind of wake up a little bit. And then when my grandma died, I kind of woke up a little bit again. And so it's kind of been this process. So the last 7 years, really, of trying to find myself again and be a better person and take care of myself.
And that's really what you are teaching people, and not just teaching, but you are showing it, you are, modeling it for people in your group, that caring for themselves and how a different way of interacting with their families, which is why I love it so much, because you put yourself in a situation where you have to walk the walk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I think for the last few years, and kind of how the group started was, I had a lot of people just coming to me, like they would say the typical line, I don't know how you do it. Like they would see me juggling the kids in the store, or when I started homeschooling, and they would just keep saying, I don't know how you do it. And so I would just, I mean, my answer is always, I'm just determined to do it. You have to do it. To me, when you become a mom, you've got to do it, regardless of what you want, whatever's going on with you, you've got to get up in the morning and do it.
Yes.
And so that's how my umbrella company, Just Determined, got started, is because no matter what I did, I found myself saying the same thing. I'm just determined to do it.
Do you homeschool all of your children?
I do. And it wasn't until the last couple of years. So 2014, I think, is when I started homeschooling, because we had a lot of issues with the school system here in Alabama, and it just wasn't what I was accustomed to in Connecticut. And so I wanted something.
On Long Island, I even where I grew up in Birmingham, the schools, and I went to very good schools. I went to private schools, but I was really surprised at what a really good public school looks like. And they have them up in the Northeast, and even the very best schools in the South just don't come close to what they have up in the Northeast. It's real eye-opening to walk into a really fantastic public school and see what that could look like.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like I'm really big into the arts. I've been singing and playing instruments and things my whole life, and there's, no matter where you go around the country right now, there's so little money for arts and things like that anymore, that a lot of the experience that I had growing up, you can't, there's just no money for that stuff in the school system anymore. And then a couple of my kids were having issues learning in different areas. And so I had friends that homeschooled here, and I just kind of made the leap because I wanted something better than what we were getting at the time. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey with that. Very different, because I went to public school, so I didn't know any different than that. So that's been a whole other fun journey to learn.
Do you what you talked about hitting that point of transition? What got you through it?
I think just remembering kind of things that my brother and my grandparents had said to me throughout the years, just about or thinking or keeping in my mind what they would want for me right now. Like, would they want me to continue the path that I was on? Because I had done a really good job for a long time of convincing everybody that I was fine. And I just went along like that forever. So I don't even think that they even really knew, the people that were closest to me, I don't even think they really knew what I was going through internally for a long time. And so I really kept in my mind that my kids deserved me to be better to myself, and that I deserved me to be better to myself, and that my husband now, like he invested so much faith that, you know, that things were going to turn around for me, that I felt like I owed that to myself and to him and to my kids, and to show up and not just float along, to really show up and be human.
Do you what were you reading? What were you classes were you taking? What things were you finding that were helping you through that?
At first, like Google, seriously, like I didn't really have, I had a support system for a little while when we first moved here. But it was kind of a facade. It wasn't, because I still wasn't at the point where I was being my authentic self. I was in this mode of just pretending that everything was fine with me. And so this person that people here got to know, I don't think that was me. It was just who I was trying to, like, everything's fine. I'm fine. Everything's great. And so I didn't have a lot once I started to make this shift, I think that's probably been the hardest thing. Once I've started to make this shift into finding a happier place within myself, a lot of those people fell away. And that's probably been one of the hardest things for me to grasp, because as I said, I went through a period where it's everybody, I went through so much loss. And so when I experience loss now, even if the person doesn't die, even if it's just, you know, they step away for whatever reason, it's very hard for me to deal with that. But so I went along, you know, for a long time with people not really knowing me, and did a lot of Googling. And a big shift for me was when I hired kind of my life coach in 2015, so a couple years ago. And that was a huge shift for me, because it was like I didn't have to put so much stress on my husband, didn't have to put, you know, any stress on my kids. I could just use this time with her to find myself again. And I had already been like, you know, I'd done some really good Googling. I was on a good path, but just had her give me that extra push to take action. And I think that that's what.
You worked one-on-one with a life coach. I know people who are, or of people who are. You know, how is that different from therapy when you work with a coach?
Well, the person that I hired is actually a therapist too. She and that's kind of why I hired her, because I know some of my history has a lot of abuse in there, and all I had ever known was kind of the traditional therapy. And so to me, hiring someone that was a therapist and a coach was a safe move, because I didn't know how deep I needed to go. I didn't know what I needed to do kind of in these sessions. And so that was a good option for me. And there are coaches like that out there. So if you're accustomed to traditional therapy, that's probably a good way to go, because then you can go both ways. But for me, it was more about anytime I had been in therapy in the past, it's kind of just rehashing the old stuff for an hour. And then when you leave therapy, it's like, oh, I feel really lousy right now because I just rehashed everything for an hour. And then you come back the next week and you do it again. You keep like.
It can be a very, people think that therapy will make everything feel better, but sometimes there's a lot of churning up stuff and questioning yourself. I currently, a therapist I work with, she does more of the sort of skills and cognitive behavior therapy, which I hadn't done before, and that's been really interesting. And that it's, you know, we still do a lot of talking about the past, but there's also a lot more sort of like, and you can try this, which is,
yeah, it's more about,
honestly.
Yeah, it's more about action with a coach. So more about, you know, them holding your hand while, like, they'll give you something and they hold your hand and push you while they're holding your hand, so that you have support there. But it's really about taking action. And that's kind of the direction that I go with when I'm training, when I'm working with moms in the moms group too, is that, you know, and I've said it over and over and over again, I can give you so many amazing tools and tricks and things that you can do, but if you don't do anything, it's for nothing. You have to actually get up and have some kind of internal motivation to do it. Amanda in the chat is saying you have to work, you have to do the work. Yeah, like it's
guilty of that sometimes. It's true that you do. And you also, I like that your group is so supportive and nurturing. And so it's not like you're sitting there giving people all these projects or whatever. It's just sort of like, hey, there's a little event and everybody can join in, and it's social, but it's social around developing a more positive framework. And I just think it's so nice to have a place where moms can come and be in a place where, okay, here's some people that are reminding me to be myself, and their whole identity isn't around their children. It's all around, here's a place where we can be the adults who are parents, but it's not, like one thing that your group isn't is like a bunch of parenting tips, and it's really not so much around the children, it's around the mothers. And that's so nice, because so much that is there for mothers is really just to help them to be parents.
Right. And I can, and that was like a big reason why I wanted to start the group, is because I couldn't find anything that was really like that. A lot of the groups that I found were either focused on the parenting, focused on the relationship with their partner or their spouse, or focused on their business. There was nothing that was all inclusive. If they said it was, there was still one thing that kind of overtook another. Nothing focusing on the whole picture. And I just feel like when you do that and you focus on just one thing, the other things kind of go by the wayside, and you forget and to put effort into and time into those things.
It's interesting because that you've talked about, that business support, because that was something I put in to my group and have made, a really important part of my group. Sometimes I worry that I made it like too much a part of my group, but the reason that I did it is because I had been moderating this very large discussion board about yoga, and I would see so many questions that people had related to business, but it was almost like they were a little ashamed of these questions somehow, or that it was, people really would sort of diminish how important it was for them to have support for making a living. And as somebody who really didn't successfully make a living doing what I loved, I realized that without that piece, then you can't fully be yourself. Like we have to support all sides of people, and an important part of that is, how do I make money doing the thing that is me, instead of like, oh, just go and do your soul-sucking day job forever and have this be your hobby, and that's not really who you are.
Yeah. And I think it all goes back to self-care, and that's why I teach the way that I do in Mom. And I should have prepared better and got it up so I could show you, but I have an image that I made that almost looks like when you throw a stone into the water and it ripples out. And it has self-care in the middle, and then rippling out is your family, and then your home, and then the community, business, the rest of the world, rippling out like that. And if you don't take action and throw that stone into the water, you never have that ripple effect. You have to throw the stone into the self-care, into yourself, or nothing else is affected by it. And so that was kind of how I came up with my model for Mom, is because we do touch on all four of those areas. However, it all comes back to the center. And if you don't do those important self-care things, everything else kind of suffers because of it.
Right. It's true. Yeah. You have to be at the center of what you're doing and taking care of yourself. Okay. Well, I am thinking that we might want to start toward the wind down, because we had talked before we started recording that we're kind of like having one of those weeks where we need to model a little bit of self-care. And I'm just so happy that people in my group, I hope that we get a lot of people watching the recording, because I really want people in the group to get to know you and get to know all of each other. One of my goals is for people to start really interacting with each other and see the support that we have here, not only for businesses, but also for just relationships with each other to form these connections. So that's what they call networking. I've really learned that a lot of those business terms like that, just to me, I'm trying to find a more personal way to think about all that stuff, because really it's about creating deep friendships. And to me, networking has a bit of a kind of using each other connotation. Like, oh, I'm meeting you, but for my own ends. And I felt like, how about a different kind of model where it's like we're supporting each other out of a deep friendship instead of networking.
Yeah. And that's I feel the exact same way. And that's why how my membership came to be, because the Facebook group is kind of like that. It's networking. It's pop in when you want, pop in when it's convenient for you. You come to what you want, whatever works in your schedule.
We were going to talk about the diamond stuff, so this is perfect. Yeah, exactly. So
and I recognize that works for a lot of people. They just, a lot of moms are, this stuff that we talk about as self-care, it's very unnatural for moms, because for most moms, I find, because we are so, like, we get in this mom mode when we have children, where we automatically skip that first ripple of self-care and we jump to family, like just forget about the middle, and now we're just taking care of the kids. And so it's very unnatural for a lot of moms. Yes, back burner mama, Amanda's saying. That's what we put ourselves on the back burner. And so the community, there's still a lot of moms in there who I think are very uncomfortable with understanding that you have to put yourself first, and that benefits the collective. And so the reason that I created my Diamond membership is for those moms that are those determined moms that are like, okay, something's got to give here. I'm understanding now that I need to put myself first. Now tell me how to do that.
Yeah, and Amanda was saying that you feel guilty. Yes, and exactly that. We're sort of, especially when you have real young children, it's hard to find that way to be for yourself. It's like your whole, I remember, I would just introduce myself to people like, I'm Maddie's mom.
Yep.
I don't even have an identity anymore. I'm just a mom.
Yeah. I mean, I literally last year I practiced when I was starting the community, my coach had me practicing like, my name is Jessica Dugas. My name is Jessica Dugas. My name is Jessica Dugas. Like, not I'm somebody's mom, and I also had to practice when I was introducing myself for my business to stop saying mommy, to stop saying, to jumping to the mom thing first. So I'm Jessica Dugas and I'm so-and-so's mom. Like, or I'm a mom of 6. Now I start out, my name is Jessica Dugas and I'm a mentor for moms. And in the spare time I don't have, I am also a, kind of thing. So Kitty.
Cat is here. And so with the diamonds, these are for the people who are really committed to self-care. How is it different from your Facebook group? Just the way it works is like, there's
they don't
events that are kind of going on all the time. You do pull oracle cards. You once a week you have little chats, coffee chats, wine chats, or just little things, little questions. It's sort of, just there's always a little small bite-sized activities going on. So with the diamonds, what is that like?
Well, the community, the Facebook community is for any mom that wants to, start looking at how to reduce the stress in her life. And the diamonds is really for moms who, they don't have to be to the point of, I know exactly what I want to do right now. They just have to be to that point in their life where they're like, okay, I'm ready. Like feel like they're ready to take action and try to, you know, actually live life and not float through it. And so what we do in Moms is an actual membership site, or in the Diamonds, I mean, where they can log in. There's a Facebook style community where they can have a profile, they can chat with other people, and then we have exclusive activities. We have my weekly oracle readings, like you said, that they can opt into. We have a monthly Moms Night In where we come on Zoom, and like this week we're making an Empower poster. See that?
Oh, nice.
We're doing a craft together, and then they get one-on-one coaching with me about looking at that ripple effect and seeing how can we balance your ripple out a little bit. And then kind of as a bonus, something that my kids wanted to do that started out as like a homeschool project is that my kids are running the kids club, which has, we do kids meditation, cooking with them, just little fun things that they can do. So there's a lot inside there. I send out a newsletter every week that's like yay long with all the options that they have to join in.
It's kind of like a country club online.
Yes. A country club with lots of learning too. My husband is really amazing at sales, and so we have an entrepreneur lunch once a month that he can give some tips and stuff for sales for those of us who are entrepreneurs. And it's really, there's a lot of learning, but it's a lot about that community. And I could have gone out and made like, you know, these premium coaching packages where I just worked one-on-one, but I know from my experience, like things would have been so much easier if I would have had a community there that had my back too, not just my coach, but if I had the community there, it would have been easier for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's important to have that aspect.
It's interesting to hear more about your background and where you're going now. And, you know, one of the things that is that sort of, as we start to learn tools that help us, then we sort of naturally evolve to be teachers. And I think a lot of people, you know, they kind of are like, whoa, am I really ready to be a teacher? And yet it's part of how we learn. I think that, you know, as we start to develop those skills ourselves, and then we start to try to figure out how do we communicate to other people, how they could do that.
There's a saying that a lot of my church going friends say very often, and that's that God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And I love that. I always love that saying because it's true. Like I never pictured myself as I mean, I look back now at the mom that I was, and I would have never in a million years thought, you're going to be mentoring moms. Please, you are a mess. like I would have never pictured that for myself. And so now, like as things are kind of coming together for me, and I feel like I have been trained to do this, and I never would have pictured it for myself.
Yeah, it's just about stepping into who you are. That's nice. You know, it's been kind of an interesting conversation about business and your life and your business. And that's really, to me too, I started feeling so much that my identity was getting splintered apart between, you know, who I was professionally and who I was in my, you know, outside of work. And I was really seeking to find this way so that somehow when I talked with people about who I was, that it wasn't like, well, there's this part of me that does yoga, and there's this part of me that's an engineer, and there's this part of me that, like, you know, is really participating online and caring about community. And somehow I wanted it to stop. And it's nice to talk with you because you're doing that same thing where it's like, okay, it's okay. You can be a mother, you can be an entrepreneur, you can be, you know, your own person altogether.
Mm-hmm.
It's not there don't need to be those boundaries, and I'm going to support you to have all of those things together. I think a lot of people they're looking for that, and a lot of those solutions are very gimmicky, and it's disturbing to people. It's like you're sort of, playing with my heart by saying, this, that I could work from home, and somehow it's still, there's a separation there between your home and your work.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that even where I am now and how far I've come, like, I'm still very, very much a work in progress. And I try to encourage any moms that I work with to, even if they feel like they reach a point where they're like, oh, I've made such huge strides, always consider yourself to be a work in progress, because there's always more that you can learn about yourself. There's always more that you can share with other people. And like now I've come to kind of realize that it's been very difficult for me where I live now to be myself. I have a lot of Facebook posts that only go out to certain people, and because it's very difficult in certain places to be exactly who you are without worrying about judgment. And so I'm still working on that. I'm still trying to be okay with the fact that people are going to come and go. That's something in my life that I'm still working on. But always be that work in progress, and continue moving forward.
Thank you for sharing that. That's I think especially important for moms to hear that, because it's such a period of rapid growth. Working with children, they're always like pushing you to a new place. I'm chatting something. Sorry, my daughter is.
It's okay.
Noise, and that was why I was making faces.
No, but that's the other thing that I wanted to say really quick is that the community, the mom community, is really a community for every mom. It's not a place for judgment. You get that a lot in mom groups, and that was a big reason why I wanted to start mom, because the judgment and constant, never ending, my way is the best. And I've talked to you about this before, like competition of what's like the worst thing that's happened to you today. And I just couldn't take that negativity anymore. And so mom, I'm very, very proud of that mom is not a place where that takes place. There's no judgment there. And there's none of this like, well, my life stinks because my dishes are piled up and my laundry's piled up, and you can get that anywhere, and mom is not the place for that. And so I'm really kind of proud that there's a happy place.
I was very disturbed, and that's heard so early on with mothers, like that book, What to Expect When You're Expecting. It's like the world's most judgy book, and I remember reading that book, and everybody insisted I had to get it, and I was so disturbed by all the messages that I started getting when I became, a new mom. And then I felt like everybody insisted I had to have all this stuff. And I was like, why do and then I got, my daughter was born, and I was like, what is all this stuff for? I don't get this. It was very strange. I found the whole experience to be like, okay, now you're going to, there's going to be all these rules that other people are going to make up about how you're supposed to raise your child. And, you're supposed to figure out how you're going to please us. That's somehow more important than you finding what's in your heart to do to take care of your child the way that is right for her. And I really, it was a great experience for me, because I really actively rejected it. About 4 months in, I went and just like threw all the parenting books in the trash and said, screw this.
Yeah. Well, I've had people ask me that before, like, why don't you have parenting experts and stuff in mom? And I said, because I don't subscribe to that, because everybody has a different child and every mom is a different person. And I'll give you a list. You want a list of parenting experts? I'll give them to you. But I'm not going to have someone come in the group and say, this is how you should parent, talking to 80 women. I'm just not going to do it because we're all so different. And so I have a resource section in the Diamond membership that you are more than welcome to use. But we talk about things that, ways that you can do things so that it works for you. Not a cookie cutter, like this is how you need to parent. This is how you should be a wife. This is how you should run your business. I just don't do that.
So true. It is so true. Oh, and Amanda's saying, yes, very different. Everyone either
has their own
thing. My glasses on today. Everyone has either their own thing that works. That was hard for them when their kids were little and this first time mama. Yeah, I know. I got really, and it went on and on and on. And I just was like, I don't want to be a part of this. I have often, thought like maybe I should write a book about how I raised my daughter, because it was so, just from my own experience. And then I thought, well, I'd just like jinx it or something and be like Tiger Woods' dad, who wrote that book, and then like, what's going on with him now?
And ultimately, like, I would love to see, like, I don't know, I don't think about it one day. I would love to see like a collection of something that's not coming from a judgy place, like a not so parenting book. Like,
lovely. That's a great idea of sort of where things that parents did that was completely from, I have to tell you, like I had a mother who related this amazing story to me of being a very young mom with a child who was born with a quite profound disability. And her daughter ended up being it was her first daughter, her first child, so she was brand new mom, ended up being in the NICU for like the whole first month of her life. She had pumped her milk throughout the time that her daughter was in the hospital so that she could have the breast milk because she had been so sick. But when her daughter came home, she couldn't breastfeed. Her daughter wouldn't take her breast because she was used to taking a nipple, which is much easier with milk. And I mean, she told me this incredible story of after several days of trying to get her daughter to nurse, sitting down and thinking, when was the last time her daughter felt safe? Because her daughter had been in the hospital. And so she said, well, she was safe in the womb. And she went into the tub and she basically recreated the womb for her daughter. But I mean, I think she was like 19 years old, 20 years old, very young, didn't have any support to do this. And she just knew this is what she needed to do in order to get her daughter to feed. And I mean, it was her whole story around all the things that she did to get her daughter through her first, couple of months of life was so profound. But I would love to see, people sharing those experiences where they stepped into their own truth as parents and did the things that no one ever talked about.
Well, that's what I mean, like about, creating a non-judgmental community. I do a lot of things that are considered outside of the box, and I would just love to have just to see this space continue where I can say I still nurse my daughter and she's almost 3, and not have this, oh my gosh, like,
or the other way around, and all the people who are like, oh, but I nursed my daughter until she was 6.
Yeah, like, well, I mean, and it's just like, I just don't want that. And that was, a big, that is a zero tolerance thing in my group. When the other morning we had, one of the members was on Saturday morning coffee, and she wasn't going to talk about her nursing experience because she was like, I just don't. I'm like, no, you say what you tell us your experience, because I'm not going to judge you for whatever it is that you do. What you do is your thing. And I would love to see that more from moms, where we can say, it's where you don't even feel like you need to say, oh, that's not for me, but just say congratulations, or just say that's great for you. You don't have to put yourself into it, because it's not about you. And so I would just love to see that, where you could just congratulate someone for what they've chosen to do and leave it at that. Just leave it alone. Let them be them.
Yeah. Yeah, congratulations to you. You figured out the right thing for you.
Yeah. I mean, truly, I mean, it's a hard enough thing, making our own decisions. It truly is. I mean, you have to decide as a parent, as a mom. I always say that, like, my oldest is like a guinea pig, because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Like, I was just like, well, let's see if this works. Let's see if this works. Sorry.
The joke with my stepchildren that I was sort of practicing on them, and I really, as I got older, I thought, wow, that was kind of a cruel joke, because it was kind of true in a way, and I also felt like, it wasn't very kind to them to say, like, oh, I'm just pretend parenting on you,
I mean, we do the best that we can do with the knowledge that we have, with our own goals, our own morals, whatever it is that we believe. We do the best that we can do, and the sooner that we can, accept that everybody's just doing the best that they can do, the farther along we'll get, as moms, I believe, as a mom community, to just say congratulations for figuring out what works, because it's truly an accomplishment to have made a decision.
Wow. Okay, well, I'm going to wind it up now. We will put information when I hit the replay, put the links in for your Facebook group and for the Diamond membership. And we also have a special going on your ebook, which is about coping through life transitions,
which is minute by minute as a mom. Which is minute by minute as a mom.
Yeah, and it's a really nice little thing. It's sort of, like 5 little modules. They're each sort of bite-sized, and yet they're very kind. And I do think that for people going through a change in their life, just, sit down and take a few moments and have these things that show you there's such care in what you've created. So it's a 25% off with the code NURTURE, and I'll put that also the link for the product, and also for the discount code in the playback for people who want to do that. And that's going on. I can't even remember. I'll put the date. Like midway through June, I think, for the stuff. And thank you so much for taking your time. It was really nice to just get to know more about your backstory. You've moved almost as much as I have.
Pretty much. Thank you for having me on. Like I said, we don't ever really get a chance to just sit and chat. It's always like focus.
Yeah, that's the one thing I don't like about the online stuff, is that, and I've been engaged with things, the community that I was in, we got to know each other in person. Mm-hmm. And it does really, I try now. Thank you so much. I didn't know some of the things and the smaller details of you. Even
she didn't know a lot of things, and she's known me for 11 years, so.
We would meet each other in person, and I really try to get to know people in person if it's at all possible, because you just have more time to sit down. I think that was sort of like the theme of the call, like time and the limitations of time, and how we use our time. Lots of things around that. But I that's the one thing when you're in person with somebody, it just seems like you have more time. And when you're online, there's always like real life kind of knocking at your door. I mean, even while we were doing this, my daughter came down and my husband came down, and I was thinking like, oh, I'm pulling time away from them to be there. Whereas if you were here in person, be like, see ya.
I have lots of opinions about time and how we use it. So anytime you want to have a discussion about that, we can.
That would be a very, very, very cool discussion. And it was interesting because I just had a conversation with a woman who she joined up recently, and she did Facebook marketing and stuff. And she said, our most valuable thing is time. And Amanda saying LOL. And I thought, to me, it's like time flies when I do the things that I love. And that's where I'm just refusing to allow myself to put my time into the things that just don't make me happy anymore.
Yes.
And it's 'cause at times it can be kind of painful because it's like, well, I kind of need to be doing this where, my job and stuff, and more, this is my job. And I'm hoping I can figure out how to really make it where this is totally supporting me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's important what we're doing, teaching people that you to walk away, walk your own path, make a living, doing what makes you whole.
And I think it's important. I think that's why my mission of doing this work with moms is so important, because I've seen the changes in my kids when they saw me switch gears, when they saw me start to care about myself, when they've seen me. I mean, they don't know it yet, but they've got a huge privilege being home with me every day and seeing me run a business. My oldest son is now wanting to start his own company, and he's only 16. And so there's a huge shift in mentality when you as a mom start doing that mindset work and that self-care work, and you're passing that on. You don't realize how important that is. Like,
well, my daughter, she went off to college, and it's like, now it's like she needs to have these things for herself. And I felt like, I've given her a lot of tools that I didn't have, and a lot of knowledge and a lot of skills that I didn't have. And now, of course, it's still just, she still has to live her life, and so it's still her own lessons and things. But I hope that there's a little more support there to say, okay, remember that time that we went to the yoga center, and remember that we went and practiced yoga together, or that, just the emotional skills that I've tried to teach her over the years. I feel like she knows much more than me. And my hope is that as she goes through these, lessons of college and things, that she can do it in a way that's more mature, less chaotic, and somehow a little more, without getting into relationships that hurt her, or see those quicker, and have the tools to identify it and move out of it. Yeah. So I've been winding up for like 20 minutes recording.